College of Urban Planning and Public Affairs. Please come forward, led by your college marshal, Zarina Nadovich Budic, to be congratulated by President Khalid, Chancellor Emeritus, and Dean Hagan.
Bachelor of Arts, Public Policy, Michael Yukis, Irvin Jimenez, Ashel Yadi, Bachelor of Arts.
Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Achilla, aka Sochella. This is actually 1 month post-graduation for me. I recently graduated December 14, 2019 with my bachelor's in public policy from the University of Illinois at Chicago. And I just wanted to come on here and be candid about some of my recent struggles while transitioning from college to the real world. I know that a lot of you may be able to potentially relate, so if you'd like to learn a little bit more about my college journey and how I've been kind of managing, just stay tuned. So my college experience has been by no means a walk in the park. In fact, it actually took me over 7 years to complete it. Yes, 7 years. But honestly, in hindsight, I feel like there really was genuinely beauty in the struggle, because now that I've overcome all of the hurdles that I took in order to even get to this point, it has made me such a much more resilient person, and I do feel like it's generally gonna influence just my resistance and resilience in the next chapter of my life. So I graduated high school in 2012, and I started at UIC as a freshman in the psychology department, and I stayed there for a year. I started off pretty strong, but shortly after, I just let other outside distractions affect me and my academics, which eventually led me to drop out. I also was going through financial issues at the time, and I ran into a bit of a FAFSA financial aid snafu with UIC, and I ended up owing them over $20,000 at some point before I transferred back into UIC. I had to actually pay all that off. I had to take about 2 years off to kind of just like reevaluate what some of my goals were at the time, and like how I was even gonna be able to overcome the hurdles that were getting in my way. And honestly, that was the best time of my life to be able to kind of regroup and really understand what it is that I wanted to do with my life. It was during that time that I actually completed an AmeriCorps service year as well, where I was working as a community organizer, and that's kind of what led me into becoming a public policy major to begin with, because while I do love human connection and interacting with individuals and helping them through their traumas, I did feel like ultimately for me in particular, working at a more like systematic level was just something that was a little bit more to push for something that was a little bit more sustainable was just the route that I wanted to take in terms of my professional field. I also do feel like public policy just would open up more opportunities for me, at least at the bachelor's level. Obviously, for other psychology majors, you most likely need to end up going straight into grad school if you're going to even get a job in your field at all. I did want to give you guys a little bit of a working definition of what public policy even is, because I feel like a lot of people aren't familiar with public policy or what that program entails. So essentially, policy is a course plan of action that's implemented at either a government level or a business level in order to respond to something in particular. So it's either like a law or regulation that's implemented to govern how people interact with each other and also how they interact with certain institutions. And in terms of my specific course plan, I took a lot of different courses in economics. I learned a little bit about sociology. I took some urban planning courses to get more of an understanding of like the history of not only just the U.S. but then also like other international issues and how they relate to the society that we live under now. I was fortunate enough to have some different opportunities that connected to public policy. This past summer, I did a internship as a policy and communications intern for an organization that focuses on like after school policy. And then after that, this past fall, I actually worked as a constituent services intern at a alderman's office, which is like just like a local elected official for those of you guys that have like different city structures. And that was a great experience. I got to help the alderman with research. I also got to help with implementing like certain different service requests that people had, whether it be fixing a pothole, fixing like requesting a garbage can, chopping a tree, whatever you asked for. I was like your person. So yeah, I mean, although that doesn't really tie into like what I eventually want to get into, it did help me get a better understanding of like, I guess, what positions would be potentially open for me when I do decide to go into getting a full-time position. So currently I am not looking into getting a full-time position, mainly for the reason that I am looking into going to South Sudan this summer or this spring. It's still kind of up in the air for me, and I felt like jumping into a position that required full-time commitment for me was just not for me. However, that kind of does come with its own struggles, because obviously if I'm not looking for a job, then that means that I might take a little bit of a financial hit. I am personally prepared for it. Currently I'm working an internship that's a 10-hour commitment. I work on Fridays. I have a advocacy training every Friday for 5 hours, and then the other 5 hours I work remotely. But I think with that came like me not being able to have a structured schedule. So a lot of the times I end up falling asleep pretty late, like maybe like 2 a.m. And then I end up waking up around like noon. And I just feel like the lack of structure has kind of like had my mental health take a little bit of a hit, because I've just had a little bit of a I wouldn't necessarily call it situational depression, maybe just a little bit of a funk because of graduating. And I just am still working towards getting like my groove back, essentially. But with time, I know that that'll come. I'm really confident about what my life will be after I get back from Sudan, because I have made a lot of different connections within the public policy realm. Like, that's the major key. I mean, in anything, networking is a major key. And I feel like people have been so supportive of me throughout this process. So I do look forward to what the next season will like bring for me. But until then, I am still figuring it out. I'm in no rush, and I'm just kind of, masking in the season that I am in right now, because I know that not everybody is fortunate enough to have the flexibility and the time to just kind of like breathe and transition. For me, some of my goals for this season that I have like somewhat off is to just work on my discipline. So I want to get a certain regime down. I want to be able to work out without somebody like forcing me to get out the house. I want to be able to wake up more consistently at a given time, and like make my my days even more productive day by day. And I know that that's something that I'm capable of doing. It's just more so that I need to kind of like pull myself out of like a unproductive space and be able to challenge myself to do things that I'm not like required to do. Because obviously when you're in college, you have deadlines and all that stuff. But when you're like in the real world, granted, obviously when you have a full-time job, you'll have those commitments as well. But outside of that, in terms of adulting, you just have to kind of make the best use of your time in general, because you're only going to get even busier. So yeah, I mean, this is only the first update of many. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them below, or if you guys have any content ideas around like college related content, then let me know as well. Yeah, so, and if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe. I do plan on uploading at the very least on a weekly basis. So I look forward to this journey. Thanks again for tuning in.